I was on the internet the other day, and apparently Stefon Diggs is dating Cardi B. That is a lot going on. What it reminded me of, and I believe you have seen this video, that one year when Stefon Diggs played for the Minnesota Vikings, they like to go in the locker room and ask questions, just,
Oh yeah.
it's just something about who's the guy on the team most likely, right? Like that
Right.
sort of stuff. And I don't know all the questions they asked because the only question that I've seen circulated around was who is the man on your team that you would not let date your sister? And apparently 52 people had the same answer. And that answer was Stefon Diggs. I don't know if all 52 had that answer, or maybe that was the way that it was cut, but it wasn't simply that people had the answer. It was how little they had to think about this fact. There are other people in that locker room that have had issues that have come up in the news, right? But Stefon Diggs was the number one person. People were like, oh, hell no, not him. So next thing we know, it's a boat, and maybe I didn't see everything. You let me know about this, Dominique. But it looked like Stefon Diggs, Cardi B, and a bunch of them. The only dude I saw on that boat was Stefon Diggs. The rest of them looked like a bunch of chicks whose favorite rapper is Cardi B. And I'm not saying that as any sort of insult. I'm just trying to help you know. And they was just out there just dropping it. Like it was, I don't know last time you went to anything that resembles a club. I did a couple years ago. Oh, it was last year. And it is amazing how much girls dancing with girls, that seems to be like what the game is. The fellas don't be part of it. The girls just be doing all that with each other. They was all just doing it with each other, except Stefon Diggs was with him and they was doing it with him too. And his girl right there. If that's your get down, he seemed to have won. But then we got a video, because of course there's all these videos. Then we get a video, Stefon Diggs with a bag of something pink. I don't do drugs. Okay. I don't know nothing about that world of stuff. However, I know a little bit about the world. And he wasn't showing them like some special sand that he got off the beach in the Maldives. Like I don't know what exactly was in there. You had to be very careful to say those sort of things for legal reasons. However, I have my theory on what happened, and I'm curious I'm going to run this by you because I know you have thoughts. Okay. Watched a little more TV lately in the last 6 months, caught up on like some older, some shows. Like I did the whole Righteous Gemstone ride in like a couple of months, including the last season. I hadn't watched it, I just got through watching The Studio, Seth Rogen, There's a few other shows where this comes up. Now, some of these did not come up. Like on The Studio, this usually didn't come up. Like apparently they had a rule on HBO. White Lotus had the same situation. They had a rule on HBO apparently that like you could not do an episode of television without somebody's tallywhacker being on the screen, right? I don't know if it was a post George Floyd decision. I have no idea, right? But it was a lot of tallywhackers on the televion.
Post Me Too. I mean,
that was
not George Floyd. Like, what was we doing,
brother? After George Floyd, everybody was getting in where they was fitting in. You know what I'm saying? If the blacks were getting things, somebody else had to get something too, right? That's all I'm saying. Anything went at that point. But the other thing is, people are really casual now in pop culture about cocaine in a way that I cannot relate to. Right? Did you see the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner that Eddie Murphy and Jonah Hill did?
I saw it.
And it was that scene in there where it was the bachelor party and Eddie Murphy out with the white boys and somebody broke out some cocaine and they did the cocaine and Eddie Murphy had huge problems with it and everybody was telling Eddie Murphy how he was tripping. When did this happen?
I don't know, man, but I think I might have told you this story before, but I remember when I was in business school, we had like some dinner with some students and everyone was supposed to share something personal about themselves. And then one of the women at the dinner told us about how her brother used cocaine a lot. And so whatever, we're done with the dinner. And then so we're just like mingling. And I went over to her. I was like, man, like I got people in my family who struggle from addiction. Like I get it. Sorry to hear that. And she's like, oh no, he doesn't have a problem. I was like, what?
Then
What do you mean?
why did you bring this up?
Yeah, what do you mean? Like, is he the idea that you can be a functional cocaine user is something that exists apparently, but I never realized it existed because we were raised in a way. I guess cocaine was crack, and you can't be a functional crackhead. I don't give a damn
Well,
what nobody say.
no, so you can't. There are functional crack users. It was a shocking thing to learn.
There was one outside linebacker. That's the only one ever.
Saying, not everybody turns into a full blown fiend, right? Like crackhead is so bad that nobody they was only smoking crack around each other apparently.
Yeah.
Like nobody needed to know this thing, but I've come to learn over this time, you would be surprised. There's a few more people who just hit the occasional rock than one would think. Like Len Bias, I was 5 years old when Len Bias died. That was the first time I heard of cocaine. That was the first time I heard of Len Bias. Like all of those things, it was a defining sort of thing. But as a friend of mine once told me, the worst thing about cocaine is the people you meet when doing cocaine. Like there is a general understanding that on the other side of cocaine, even if it doesn't destroy your everything and make you strung out, but the other side of cocaine is bad things. This is understood. There's a lot of like
Marion Barry smoked crack too, right? He
did too.
Yeah.
He did.
Highly
There's
functional.
a lot. Fair point. but there's a lot of like we have reached a point. I think is what I'm ultimately going with this is that we have somehow reached a point where perhaps somebody broke out the dope and it was on camera and nobody thought to themselves, hey, you can't share that. This could get people in trouble. Like, has that happened? Like, is the war on drugs that over?
I guess. But also, this is we really gonna be telling them to get off the lawn real quick because this is also a modern construct of needing to share everything.
Yes.
Like, why we need to share videos while we on the boat? Like, none of y'all, between Steph Diggs and Cardi B and all the women that are on there, y'all don't need no clout. And why y'all chasing like, I don't get it. And this is my perspective. It's like they're sharing it because that's how they grew up and that's just the way that they do things fine. But I don't even need y'all to know that I'm on a boat with a bunch of baddies. I don't need you to know that. And I definitely don't need you to know that I'm on a boat with a bunch of baddies with a bag of pink powder. Like, who we showing off for?
But but Cardi B, she lived her life out there. I don't know nearly as much about Stefon Diggs or whoever else is there, but you're right. Like everything has to have a camera involved with it. And I just but let's also remember this. After 2020, all the leagues dialed back they dope stuff, right? Which I approve of, by the way. I think drug testing at work is unconstitutional. They dialed back all that stuff, but it leads to a place where all Mike Vrabel can say basically is, hey, man, you can't be doing that, right? Because Stefon Diggs plays for the Patriots now. But we are at that point where would it be a scandal if they had a picture of Stefon Diggs snorting cocaine? Would that turn into anything more than a meme?
Hell no. I think that's a scandal. That becomes a thing.
Is it?
This is the one thing, like, I remember listening to like slippery slope arguments about marijuana and thinking that it was absurd when I was young. However, because like I would understand, like I had plenty of friends who smoke a lot of weed and none of them ever smoked crack. But this does feel like because we've moved the line on some of these things, that these other things now feel like those are the things that have replaced weed, but they are a lot. I assume I'm not a doctor, but those things seem a lot more dangerous than weed. So this does speak to whatever slippery slope argument they were making. I like to believe that we have video of anybody putting their face on a mirror and just that we would be appalled and upset, and it would be a scandal.
No, I just think that the war on drugs is over.
Yeah,
at least in that way. I would say at least in that way, right? But or the point of the war on drugs for Nixon was basically to castigate the blacks and browns. But what he did in the process, though, was inflict a shame upon the whites. And they like, yo, this ain't even really got nothing to do with me. And so my only conclusion is that white people want to do cocaine in front of people in peace. And there you go. I got no interest in it just seems to me to be a glaringly awful idea. But when everybody takes a pill for everything, right? I had a friend of mine ask me, So like when you need to, lock in and do work, what do you take? I'm like, nothing. What are you talking about? Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it.
That I mean, that's a fair criticism of us in general, and that I mean, it speaks to a lot of things that we talk about, and I think this a lot of it is about capitalism, which leads to a whole nother conversation. But like this constant, some people ain't built for some of these things,
Right.
and like not every, and we only have an economy or society that encourages respect for certain types of work, and like some people ain't built to sit in front of a computer all day or sit at a desk all day. Some people built for different labor, but you can't be self-respecting person, it feels like, and do those jobs and operate in the circles that you want to operate in. So you know what you got
Yeah.
to do? You got to put the chemicals in your body that allows you to operate in this circle, because what I'm gonna do? Hang out with construction workers? Like, no, I'm a white collar person. Like, I can't be out here doing like lifting and dropping things.